You're listening to the Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Taunya Lowe, a podcast of curated conversations with C-suite leaders and those who support organizational growth and development. Get ready for inspiring interviews, educational lessons, and thought-provoking discussions that will challenge you to execute something new and innovative that will drive results in your organization. And now, here's Dr. Taunya Lowe.
Hello, you're listening to episode 11 of the Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Taunya Lowe. Using my results-driven philosophy of strategy, leadership, teams, and customer experiences, I help organizations develop their best-kept secret, their human capital. In 2019, I released my second book, Results-Driven Organizations, The 4 Keys for a High-Performance Workplace. This podcast is designed to expand the conversation with C-suite leaders and those who support organizational growth and development, and what it really takes to create, develop, and maintain results-driven and high-performing organizations. People with poor well-being can't serve customers as well as the thriving. They're less productive, less effective, less innovative, and less perceptive. They cost more to insure, they're absent more often, they're less likely to be engaged, and they have more safety and theft incidents. So, to put it succinctly, if you care about your business well-being, you must care about your employees' well-being. May was Mental Health Month, and today we're talking with Dr. Carol Penn. Dr. Carol Penn, doubly board certified in family medicine and obesity medicine, as well as being a master movement, meditation, and mindset coach, brings more than 40 years of experience and expertise in mind-body medicine and the movement sciences. Gifted with the ability to inspire and educate about self-care, Dr. Penn brings a unique set of skills to her work as a physician. She's a businesswoman, servant leader, and entrepreneur. Dr. Penn is a founder, activist, and chief visionary officer of Penn Global Visions, LLC, a human and education multimedia firm, changing the world one meditation at a time. Soon, the doors will be opening to Penn Global Medical Group, her concierge medical practice, and we're so excited about that. She is a medical correspondent for WURD Radio in Philadelphia, where she's a frequent guest and podcaster, as well as the host of her own weekly show and podcast, Weightless in Mind, Body, and Spirit. Dr. Carol, welcome to RDO.
Oh, I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Dr. Taunya.
So excited to have you here. So excited to talk with you today. So let's jump right in. I have shared your brief bio, but I would love for you to tell our listeners about your journey from physician to CEO.
Oh my goodness, you want that whole story? Well, I actually started my medical career later in life as a second career. I'm a creative. I was a dancer and choreographer, performer, performed and trained with the world famous Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater Organization, where I was an original member of the workshop company under the tutelage of Calvin Rotardier, one of the stars of the first company. And it was so exciting as a young person to be on that world stage. I went on to spend 20 years in my career as a dancer, where I eventually directed my own company, was a consultant for the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C., where I toured over 30 states within the United States, and also toured internationally with my dance company, Penn Visions Dance Theater. And I specialized in working with children and adults who had disability. So it was really a glorious, glorious, wonderful career. But I knew from the time I was very young that I wanted to be both the dancer and the doctor. And at the time, the young child said, well, you're going to be the dancer first because you're going to get too old to dance, and you'll be too old about 25. And when you're 25, you could go to medical school because that's what old folk do.
Right. At 25.
Yes, 25, honey, was old when I was 5 years old. I have since revised my opinion about old age coming to us at 25, but I did follow the dream of the 5-year-old child and go to medical school much later. I was in my mid 40s and really saw what I wanted to do in medicine, which was to bridge that gap between the transformation that I saw in the arts. And of course, we always say that medicine is as much an art as it is a science, right? So I wanted to bridge that gap between the art and science of dance with the art of medicine and bring those worlds together to optimize human performance and potential. So that was the philosophy that I've been rolling with all these years, even from a young age. And I was blessed with the opportunity to pursue my dream, even at an older age, become a daughter of determination versus a daughter of doubt, and demonstrate to my young son that if you want to go for something, even though the odds may be against you, go ahead and do it anyway. If it's in your heart, God doesn't lay anything in our heart that God also doesn't have a solution for. So sometimes you have to step out on faith, you have to focus, and you definitely have to have the determination to finish. So I'm very, very happy to say that I did all of those things and now have a very fulfilling career as a medical doctor.
And not only a medical doctor, but a CEO. So you started out as a dancer and then became a physician, and now you run not one, but two companies, Penn Global Vision and soon to be Penn Medical.
Penn Medical Group, yeah.
Penn Medical Group. So,
well, yes, that journey on being a CEO, well, once you get started on a good thing, I really, and then I kept seeing why not. I knew that I did not go into medicine as great as an accomplishment as it is. And I'm not taking anybody who goes in and says, well, I'm just going to work for somebody else. But I know I didn't go into medicine to be a basic doctor. I knew I had a particular vision, a particular dream, a vision that was laid on my heart by my creator, by the God of my understanding. And I said, my footsteps are being ordered in a particular way. So you can stop here if you want to, but that's not what my mission and vision is about. So I knew I had to cultivate my own path in the world, carve my own vision. So I really believe, for example, that at the root, all disease is reversible. Now, we don't necessarily have all that knowledge yet to reverse some of these disease processes, but as we learn more and more about the merging of mind, body, and spirit, as we learn more and more about epigenetics, we used to think, it's in my family, it's in my genes, and so it's fait accompli. We know that that's not true, and that if the person learns how to have agency over their being, they can do a lot toward transforming what seems to be the genetic blueprint of their basic health. I mean, just because your folks had diabetes doesn't mean that that's your fate. Just because they had high blood pressure doesn't mean that it's your fate. And if you do develop diabetes or hypertension, it doesn't mean that it has to just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And you end up with a whole slew of comorbidities and end up, going to your grave at a much earlier age than you should. And so I'm interested in pushing that envelope, of pushing that edge, of looking at root causes and understanding an individual's medical narrative within the context of their life. And I believe that is the key to your own specialized medicine, your own unique blueprint of health and well-being. And that's the story that I want to get at. That's the way that I want to work with people. And there's not a lot of that exists in the traditional paradigm. So there you go. I had to just forge my own path and develop my health and wellness company to stand on that vision and then also the Penn Global Medical Group, in order to really work with people in that medical sense that are working on chronic illnesses and reversal of chronic illness processes.
Dr. Carol, as I'm listening to you, and I think as the CEOs and people in the C-suite who are listening to your expanded introduction, I think that one of the things that they can take away is that, yes, you can have it all. You can't have it all at the same time, but you can have it all. And so whereas someone would think, wow, physician, you're at the top, there's nowhere else to go. You've just told us there's plenty more to go. And so for a CEO that's listening, that may be thinking, wow, I'm a CEO now of a Fortune 500 or a mid-market company. I'm at the top. There's nowhere else for me to go. There's absolutely somewhere else for you to go. And so as we talk about, as our conversation today unwinds, I think we're going to share a little bit more about what is left, that there is more to come, right? And what has to happen for that more to come to evolve and materialize for not only the organization, but for the human capital, the people in the organization. So you ready?
I'm ready.
So Dr. Carol, I love quotes. And I believe that leaders should live a quote and not just quote it, So today I chose a quote that actually I chose two quotes. And the first one is, if you listen to your body when it whispers, you won't have to hear it scream. And the second quote I chose was, don't let your mind bully your body. So, Dr. Carol, do you have a favorite quote or philosophy on adult recess or corporate wellness that you would like to share? And how do you live that quote out loud in your organization and the work that you do?
My favorite quotes is, there is nothing greater than the pain of an untold story. And that is Dr. Maya Angelou. I love that quote. I live that quote. Because I think it is the human being, the individual human. It's Dr. Taunya's individual story within the context of her life that is going to be her path to wellness. And we have to get, as a person, as a practitioner, I have to give every person that I come in contact with an opportunity to tell their story. Because it is in the telling of their story that I'm going to hear their history, I'm going to hear their pain points, and if I listen long enough, they're also going to tell me the solution. And then it becomes my job to become their trusted guide, their accountability partner. Because you know better than anybody else what it is that you truly need, what your body truly needs. We have just been giving a lot of messaging and signaling that tells us that we don't understand that, because of course that keeps our hands in the pocket paying somebody else to tell us what we already know is true about ourselves. And we'll be told, well, don't believe that until I tell you that it's so. And that is just such a path that has led us to where we are. When we look at all the dollars that we have available in this United States for healthcare, and yet we look at our mortality and morbidity and our outcomes, they're abysmal compared to what it is that we have available to spend per person. And so part of that is in that disconnect, that whole marketing disconnect that we live in, that tells us don't believe what you're seeing with your own eyes. And worse yet, don't believe what you're feeling in your own heart, in your own body, in your own spirit. And that's what I want to educate people toward. And that's what I want to help people get at, is understanding their narrative within the context of their lives and providing that deep listening space that really just lays the whole story out. You hear the pain point and you hear the solution if you listen long enough, and if you give the person a real path to do that and a real opportunity to do that.
Wow. And I think your work around meditation in a time of madness, your book, I think it really it speaks to that, and it speaks to giving people that voice of here's a tool that you can use, and not only can you use it in your personal life, because I don't believe that personal development and professional development are separate. I think they're together. There is one. And so if you learn these tools in your personal life, your professional life will benefit, especially when everything is going crazy, whether it's, we're working, trying to get a budget done, or we're in the middle of a pandemic. When you use these tools, they really, they improve your wellness regardless of what's going on around you. And so, Dr. Carol, that leads me to my next question, which I think, we've kind of already stepped into it. Why should we be talking about corporate wellness? Why is this important for leaders to start having this conversation for their human capital?
Well, corporate wellness is important when you're talking about your human capital. Most employers want people that are loyal, that are accountable, that come to work on a fairly regular basis, that are able to think independently and proactively. And that takes a healthy workforce. If you have people that are tired, that have brain fog, that have this, that, and the other illness or disease process going on in their organ systems, and, so they can't be 100% productive. They can't even be 80 or 90% productive.
Right.
And of course, over time, with enough people falling into those categories, it's going to hurt the bottom line. It's going to make it so that the productivity falls off at a certain point. And then when you look at the global marketplace competitively, where are you? You're not going to be there with the top competitors. So corporate wellness really speaks to multiple layers within an organization or an institution. Of course, it starts with the individual, then, the community of the workplace, and then the institutional, the mission and vision of the workplace, and then right on into the policy level of the workplace.
Absolutely. I love that. In the spring of 2019, Harvard Medical School, there was a study, and that study stated workplace wellness programs have been touted as a powerful tool that can make employees healthier and more productive while reducing healthcare spending. But the results from their study yielded unimpressive results in the short term. People who worked at sites offering the program exhibited notably higher rates of some healthy behaviors, but no significant differences in other behaviors compared to the control group, end of quote. Our findings show, and this is from the study director, and he goes on and he says, our findings show that health behaviors can respond to a workplace wellness program, but they temper expectations of realizing large returns on investment in the short term. So, Dr. Carol, as a physician, as a person who is all about wellness, the mind, the body, the spirit, what would you say to a leader who has read this study and they took it at face value? One, because it's Harvard Medical School, and two, because they may not really want to go in the direction of quote unquote corporate wellness. What would you tell that leader? What would you tell that CEO?
I would tell that CEO that the jury is still out. So when you look at a lot of these wellness programs, what did they want to do? First of all, they were centered in a Eurocentric Western type of philosophy. So they thought, well, let's measure blood glucose. So typically, let's measure blood glucose. Mm-hmm. Let's measure a low density lipoprotein protein. Maybe we'll measure a BMI. We'll, take a basic weight, and we'll use as some of our parameters, does a person lose weight? Does a person exercise more? A lot of the studies show that corporate wellness programs, those were two things that were pretty strong and had pretty significant showings. But the other things that I think corporate leaders are really looking for, we don't necessarily have the best measurement tools developed for those yet. So when you're looking for, what they really want to know is, where are my leaders in this company? Who are the agents of transformation? How do you measure that? And what tool? Do we need to know a person's LDL, or their hemoglobin A1C, or their glucose levels, or their BMI, which is a weight measurement, or, if they have good lipids, or does those data points, do they really tell us what we want to know? Do we really want to know? We want to know, where are the proactive thinkers? Where are those thinkers that have that anticipatory guidance, so that the mission and vision of the organization is carried out?
Right.
So, and again, they want to know, who are my managers? That, those that carry out policy, and then who are my leaders? And the two are not the same. So, one of the things I would say to that forward thinking CEO, those in that C-suite level, is let's look again, and let's see, what are you really trying to find out? And perhaps where we need to do is, we need to develop some tools that, tell us where our leadership strengths are, that tell us about our diversity, equity, and inclusion, that tell us about the feeling tone of our organization. So for example, I would want to know, where are my creatives? So let me give a drawing exercise that involves imagery. I want to know, where are my people that are willing to, have that whole body thinking,
right.
That mind, body, and spirit thinking. Let me put in some guided imagery and get that feedback, and see what kind of imagery emerges, out of the collective. I would want to know, are my people able to, let's say, there's, corporate, the food and whatnot, we're a big organization. Well, I would want to teach them about mindful eating. I would want to teach them about gratitude, which are other ways that also help people release weight without some of the tyranny of, okay, well, I gotta, exercise a certain way.
I gotta walk every day during my lunch break.
Exactly. I would also look at qualities, want to develop tools that measure forgiveness, that measure spirituality. I want people to understand the impact of a generational trauma as well as racialized trauma. So I might work with individuals' genograms, for example, and have them be able to look through the lens of the genogram, and then be able to transpose that to look at the genogram of the corporate structure.
Dr. Carol, you have, I love everything that you're talking about, because all of these things, they, at the end of the day, they do translate to the bottom line. Because if you have someone who, if their blood glucose level is high constantly, they're not going to be able to think about their job. And so if they have stressors at home or at work, that's going to affect the productivity. If their blood pressure is up, that's going to affect their productivity. And so I do believe that, as I read the study, I was just like, what? But I do believe that there are some long-term benefits, as opposed to just, okay, join the 10-pound challenge, but really correlating as employees get healthier, right? As they get healthier, what does that look like for the organization? And I believe that, especially now during this time of COVID, where we know that even though people are working from home, they're experiencing burnout. They're experiencing burnout. They're having a hard time balancing. And so, what is that going to look like as people are moving back into the workplace? And I just believe that this conversation is timely for CEOs that are listening to really take, if they don't have a corporate wellness program in place, or they're not offering things that can really tie back to the overall improvement of the employee and how that affects the bottom line. They've got to see it full circle. I know for it to make sense to them, but I think that there's some data that's not being collected for them to see the whole picture. And I think now is the time that they need to start looking at the full picture.
I agree wholeheartedly. And, one of the things, if I were a CEO and I'm talking about bringing people back into the workforce, personally, I know some people, they can't wait to go back to work. It's like people discover how difficult it is to work at home, particularly when the home environment is not set up for a workspace.
Right.
Where people don't have their separate stations.
People were just thrown into it.
Exactly. And everybody had to figure out how to work on, a computer with 2 parents and 3 kids. And that was really, really difficult. And we saw how women ended up being marginalized, as women were the ones who tended to, leave their jobs, literally leave the workspace, because somebody had to get those kids through their school day. And then when the school day was over, somebody had to be able to give them activities to do to keep them occupied. And then somebody had to prep the meals and feed the family and until the children went to bed, and then get back up and do it again. And again, 1 computer, 5 adults. Well, dad has to need the computer, then the kids need it was very, very, very challenging.
Yes.
And so we have a workforce that is confused, that has been isolated, that's been pulled apart, really, really pulled to the stretching point. And now we also have people that are a little bit leery. They're fearful. What if we go back? What if the pandemic really isn't over? We have some people with a lot of vaccine hesitancy. Still, all of this is going on. So we have very, very stressed individuals at this point. And now people are saying, come back to work. Well, the school situation still isn't settled. People's fear still isn't settled. Right. I know I would be requiring everyone to develop and cultivate a meditation practice, to learn that moment-to-moment awareness. I would be doing some meditation courses. I would be doing some mindfulness courses, so people could check into themselves and really understand about radical self-care, resiliency, self-regulation. And I'm not talking about going to get a manicure. That's self-maintenance. That's not self-care.
Yes. So, Dr. Carol, the most successful companies know that employee well-being is not a nice to have. It's a foundational layer of high-performing workforces everywhere. And it's a key factor in a long list of business outcomes, including healthcare costs, productivity, retention, safety, absenteeism, collaboration, teamwork, and company culture. What is one thing you would suggest leaders do to make corporate wellness a priority? And then the other side of that is, what do you believe their biggest challenges are when it comes to implementation?
What they need to do is they need to, and again, it does have to start C-suite all the way down, and then from the bottom all the way up. I would work with an organization to help me create surveys to find out what my workers need now. What are they wanting now? How are their lives different? Do they have young people at home that are still at home that haven't gone back to school yet? How much loss has there been? Did they themselves have COVID? Or are they grieving the loss of family members due to COVID? This COVID-19 has everybody in post-traumatic stress disorder.
Absolutely.
Because if you survived it yourself, that's extraordinarily stressful. And just about everybody knows someone who didn't survive it, or someone who had it and now they're struggling. We're calling them the COVID long haulers. This has been just devastating on the psychological and spiritual level for millions and millions and millions of people across the globe, right? So I would be taking surveys, I'd be listening, I'd be doing focus groups, I'd be doing study groups, because I don't think we can create necessarily this new normal that a lot of people are talking about. But I think in this moment right now, we can seize the day and we can create a better normal. This is a work in progress that's still unfolding. So that's a to-do. It's a big to-do, but now's the time to have the conversation, right? If not now, when? Not now, when? So create this better normal. And I think that, what was your second question?
The challenge. What are the challenges? So that's how they make it a priority. But what do you believe their biggest leadership challenges are when it comes to moving forward with implementation?
I think moving forward with implementation, they're challenged by whoever or whatever is the weakest link on their bench. So if you have somebody in the C-suite that is naysaying any of this, that is, well, we're worried about the bottom line and we can't figure out everybody's psychological problems right now. We just have to push, we have to get the job done. You have one voice like that. That's a lot to overcome. And that is going to, as you have that trickle down effect. That means that there's going to be somebody working, at that ground level of the organization who's just struggling. And the next thing, here comes the letter of resignation. I'm better off staying at home, collecting an unemployment check than I am coming into a workplace that I feel is abusive, that I feel is adding to my stress, that I feel where I am, not heard, that I'm insignificant, I don't matter. So it's really interesting. I've been thinking a lot about this lately, because a job is more than a paycheck.
Right.
Because there's a lot of people out here who, they're like, wow, I make more money getting this unemployment check. And when I realize I'm not eating as much because I'm not out there as much, I don't have to buy lunches.
I can spend more time with my family.
Spending more time with my family, not spending as much gas money. I'm better off keeping this unemployment check. And that's for people when they are in work environments where there's no fulfillment or there's little fulfillment, where they don't feel the collegiality, where they don't feel there's an opportunity for them to grow up or to grow out.
They don't feel like they belong.
Right, exactly. There's no real inclusion. Those corporations are going to have a big challenge in retention and even getting them back in the front door. So one of the biggest challenges to implementation is going to be, what were the limitations in the corporate environment before the pandemic?
They've got to address those.
Yes, because people have discovered, I kind of like staying at home. I like more time with my family. Oh, I like raising my children in this way.
I know how to do more with less, and I've not gone without.
Yes.
Yeah. I was reading an article that talked about just that thing, about how as we're moving back into the workplace, that people are really evaluating if that's where they need to be. They've survived a year without, doing that. And so I think you are 100% accurate that it's going to take more to get people back in.
Yes, and people have discovered their values and what's important to them.
Which is not a bad thing, because I think when the values of your human capital align with the values of your organization or vice versa, that we can work together. We can work together better. I think a lot of people who struggle with my values are not in alignment with my organization's values, but I still need to feed my family and I'm stressed and I'm burnt out and I hate going to work and all of this stuff. Now they're in a place where, like, wait, I've not even been there and I can find another way. There's a better way. And so I think what corporate wellness does is it's not the Band-Aid, but it's a way of saying we care. We want you to be your best healthy self, not only for us, but for you and your family. And that's what I think about when I hear corporate wellness, when I'm talking about corporate wellness with our clients, when I'm asking them, what are you doing? What are you going to do? It's more than doing blood pressure checks, but why? And if 50 people, if their blood pressure is up high, what's going on with them? Because it's going to be a matter of time before a quarter of them are no longer there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Carol, this has been so yummy. We could talk forever about this because this is definitely something that I am passionate about. What are you reading that we should be reading?
All right. So a couple of things.
Okay.
Other than my book, Meditation at a Time of Madness, very appropriate for now. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I love this book, The Miracle Equation by Hal Elrod. Unwavering faith and extraordinary effort equal miracles. Okay. Love this book. So it says the two decisions that move your biggest goals from possible to probable to inevitable.
Wow.
I love this book. And that also goes along with his other book, The Miracle Morning.
The Miracle Morning.
Obvious secret guaranteed to transform your life before 8 a.m. There's a little mnemonic in here where it's a 6-step. It's called Savers. And he takes you through silence and meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading and scribing or journaling. And to get yourself set up, to set the table, if you will, for your day. Mindset to function that day.
When I don't do that, then my day is off.
Yes.
When I do those things, I am most productive.
Yes. It's fabulous. It's fabulous.
Yes. It absolutely is fabulous.
2 fabulous books.
Wow. So, time goes by so quickly. We have been chatting with Dr. Carol Penn, CEO, speaker, author, mindset extraordinaire, meditation extraordinaire, CEO of Penn Global Vision, Penn Global Medical Groups. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Visit the show notes to see how you can connect with Dr. Carol, grab a copy of her book, and grab a copy of Results Driven Organizations, The 4 Keys to a High Performance Workplace, and grab your special gift for being a valued listener. Until next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Taunya Lowe. Be sure to review the show notes for the resources mentioned, and don't forget to grab your free gift available at freegiftfromtanya.com. Until next time.